Ronald Reagan was one of America's toughest presidents. That is why he was able to lead the free world to victory in the Cold War. The Cold War was the contest between two visions, freedom and communism. The United States led the free world, and Russia ruled over the communist bloc with the iron fix. The fate of the world hung in the balance. The which of the two did the future belong? For many years, the two sides faced each other in tense deadlock. Each amassed weapons, and neither trusted the other. Everyone within fear that one wrong move, even one wrong word, would turn the Cold War hot, and then, heaven forbid, the whole world might go up in flames. But Ronald Reagan was not afraid. He called communist bloc an evil empire, which is exactly what it was. He was determined to break the deadlock and led Americans to victory. And amazing, he won the Cold War without firing a single shot. On one day in late 1982, President Reagan was reading a newspaper in the White House. He came across a story about a man, Rachel Andrews. Miss Andrews had been out of work for quite a while. He had just finished a job and at a meat packing plant. He was waiting at the subway station when suddenly he saw a blind man fall between two subway cars. Maxwell Andrew didn't think twice. He jumped onto the tracks and saved him. The president was deeply moved. He decided to give Max Andrews a car. Max Andrews could hardly believe it when he heard the president's voice on the phone. "How is your knee?" the president asked. "I heard you were injured during the workshop." Was Max president told some measurements. Max Andrews replied, "But don't worry about me, I'm doing okay. I had knee injuries myself," the president said. "They can be nasty. Make sure you take care of it and give your knee rest." And then, believe it or not, the president called the meat packing plant to put in a good word for Max Andrews. Max Andrews was overjoyed when he got the job. He had 8 children to feed. It was December. Christmas was just 4 days around. Ronald Wilson Reagan was born on February 6, 1911, in Tampa, Illinois. His mother, Mary, gave birth to him in the small apartment above a bakery. At the time, it was common for American mothers to give birth at home. Ronald's father, a shoe salesman named Jack, nicknamed him Dux, and the nickname stuck throughout his early life. The Reagans didn't stay in that Tampa home for long. In fact, they didn't stay anywhere very long. Jack constantly getting into trouble, and then he lose his job. And when that happened, the Reagan would leave to make a new start in a new town. what made it even harder for the always new kid was that his eyesight was poor. Once he was playing scatter base in a baseball game. The ball came his way in a swirl and tall arcs. It would have been easy catch in the world, but Warner could see the ball coming. He just stood there as a sail passed and landed on the ground. Everyone wailed, "Hey, what was that?" And oh no. Some walk on inside and some walk away, and still others laugh. One kid shouted, "Hey ducks, what's the matter with you, Reagan?" One did tell them that he couldn't see very well. From then on, when the boys chose prayers, Warner was always picked, or the last to be picked. Life at home wasn't always easy either. Warner's father, Zach, was an alcoholic. Once, after drinking too much, Zach passed out near the front steps in the snow. Warner found him there when he came home that night. For one tiff, a moment he thought he had came too late, but his father was okay. He was breathing. The young boy pulled the big man by his coat and managed to drag him inside. He had saved his father's life. Warner dad didn't even wake up. Warner went to bed and pulled the blanket over his head. He wished he could forget what he just been through. But despite the hardship, the poverty, and the constant moving, Walnut refused to give in to the gloom. He read poem he wrote when he was in school. I wonder what it all about and why we suffer so. When little things go wrong, we make our life a struggle when life should be a song. We see from very early on one that life is what we make of it, and no matter what had happened in the past, the future is always open as long as we take it on with act and X-ray. Sports was exactly his thing, but Warner would find other areas in which to try his hand, and sure enough, it wasn't long before he discovered talent for acting. It happened almost by accident. His mother Nellie was a devoted Christian. She often read the prayers in her church. She also arranged the amateur performance for congregations. Anyone could come on upon the stakes. All we had to do was memorize a poem, a passage from a book we read, or some famous speaks, and then recite it for the audience. Never liked to do it herself and thought Warner might like it too. Years later, Warner would not remember just what it was that he recited that first time, but he did remember this. He made them listen, he made them laugh, he made them say oh and oh, oh wow, and when he finished they clapped and clapped. As Walnut grew up, his love acting grew too. He pursued perfection after college, eventually became a real movie star long before he became president. Americans all over the country came to know his warm and friendly voice, his big, grinning smile, and that twinkle in his eye when he do well a punchline. Ronald enjoy acting. He liked to make people listen. He liked to make them laugh, and he liked to make them think. But more and more, Ronald become interested in politics. He worried about communism in particular. It posed a major threat to American ways of life. America was founded on the belief in personal liberty. We believe that our government should protect our freedom, not want our rights for us. It should be up to each person to decide what is best for him or her. Communists, however, have very different beliefs. They think the government knows better and that it should control every aspect of people's lives. It should decide what people can do and what they are allowed to say. It should tell them where they can live and what kind of work they can do. In communist countries, governments also think that people should believe in communism and not in God. To make sure that people obey the communists kept everyone in a state of constant fear. People know that the slightest misstep might bring the secret police to the door. Then they would be sent to Hook's jails or labor camp. After the families would not know where they were or when they would come back. There are people in America who believe in communism too, and they want the government to have more control of our lives. Reagan thought they were dangerous. He decided to enter pocket to oppose them. Reagan put the skills he had honed as the actor to good use in his new political career. He gave rectifying speeches. He made people listen. And he made people think. He was also made them laugh, and this made them feel he was their friend. He was, they would say, the great communicator. Reagan's first political position was as governor of California. He was the one in office when protesters, some of them supported those of communism, took over public park and Baker and California. In America, we're free to protest against the government if we want. We can even hold demonstrations in favor of communism, but we can't occupy a public presence that takes away the rights of others. The park is theirs to enjoy. The park is theirs to enjoy too. Governor Reagan ordered protesters to leave when they refused. He sent in 250 police officers, and when the protesters erupted in riots, he threw garbage and bottles and rocks at the police. Governor Reagan did hesitate and sit in the next guard. He ordered them to stay so they could help keep the park open and restore. People appreciate his demonstration so much, in fact, that a full was rated in 1980 to elect him President of the United States. Ronald Reagan, President, also in the new age of the 3 decades of America and Russia facing off in Prague's deadlock of the Cold War. Reagan made clear he was done with the endless stalemate. When asked what his policy of the Cold War would be, he answered, right, a tough guy from The moves his partner, he said, was simple. We win, they lose, and he meant it. He had just barely gotten to work, however, when a madman tried to assassinate him. Reagan was about to get into his armed limousine when the man approached his entourage and opened fire. In the blink of an eye, the brave men of the Secret Service sprang into action. Executive cars leaped into the line of fire to block the bullets. With his body, he took a bullet in the chest to save the president's wife. Another exit shoved the stunned president into the car and lay on top of him for protection. At first, no one realized the president was hit. All Reagan felt there was a sharp pain in his back. It was so sharp, in fact, he had to sit on the edge of his seat as the limo drove away. But he thought it was probably just a broken rib. Then the pain grew much worse. A bullet had bounced off the armored door of the limo and into his lung from behind the driver. The driver stepped on the gas. With sounds blaring, police cars raced along with the president limo through the streets of Washington, D.C. It almost looked like they were flying. When he arrived at the hospital and threw Reagan vaccine, the president insisted on walking inside on his own 2 legs, but his injury had snapped his strength. He barely made it to the door when he collapsed. Still, he managed to joke with the doctors and nurses who was to his insistence. Oh, we are Republicans, he said. To the mixed said the doctors who hated the team. We are all Republicans. The doctor meant that in our democracy, when the team is made on the wife of the commander-in-chief, we all rally behind him in a moment like this. It doesn't matter who we voted for. President Reagan made a quick recovery, thankfully. Executive McCarthy did too. Soon the time came to make a speech before 2 houses of Congress. The senators and Republicans rose to greet him with restoring applause. They were all relieved to see him back at the helm. Reagan thanked them for their steadfast support. He also thanked the many sixes who sent him letters full of good wishes. He pulled one 6 letter out of his pocket. It was from an 8-year-old boy in New York named Peter Strangely. I hope we'll get well quick. Reagan read from the letter, or might have to make a speech in the pajamas. Everyone laughed. It was just like Reagan to lift people's spirits when they were fit exits or water. And imagine how Peter must have felt hearing the president read his letter on TV. But now come the real work for many whales. American presidents started as long as commerce was confined countries that were under its control wanted to live with it. It was the best we could do, as millions of people suffering the sad of eternity, but there was no way to help them. It seemed we had setting the world on fire. President Reagan did by that at all. He said so loud and clear from his point of view, America should strive to end the reign of evil in power. Many people thought this was risky talk if the president pushed the communists too far. They fear won't he end up provoking him to war. President Reagan had no so steel. He figured that communists didn't really want war, and he thought they should know that America didn't want it either. So, while we refused to back down on his tough talk, he also reached out to the leaders of Russia, which stood at the head of the Communist bloc. Neither of us wants war, he said. We'll talk man to man and decide how we can avoid it. So as Reagan won peace, but that didn't mean he gave up on winning the Cold War. But how could America win if not on the battlefield? Well, behind his tough talk, the president had a very smart play for that. Communist governments do not allow people to keep the fruits of their labor, no matter how much work or how good. Example do who have no hope of getting in the rickshaw. On the such countries and people actually have less motivation. They end up working less, and when they do work, they don't try very hard. Americans on the other hand are free, and everyone can keep what he or she owns. This makes people want to work harder, and this is why America was much richer than the communist war. Here, the president is the key to victory. America win by means of economic power. Economic power was able to develop larger, advanced, and expensive defense technology, and some of them even based in space. But what the point of durable or the expensive technology if we don't want to use it in the war? Well, Reagan reason if America keep developing it, the communists will try to keep up, but since they are poor, and somewhere down the line they won't be able to afford it anymore, and then the evil empire will become so impossible it was simple collapse. This was the way to win the Cold War. Well, I will find a single shot. All Americans needed to do was stay the course and buy the time. Reagan was right. His party paid off shortly after he left office. Exactly what he said would happen and did. During the Cold War, there was a war separating the East from the West, communists from the free world. It divided the German city of Berlin into two. Once, when he was still in office, President Reagan went to West Berlin, which was free. He gave a famous speech there. In the speech he called on Russian communists with Mark Gorbachev to prove he was serious about peace. Makes Dr. President Reagan tear down this wall. His words echoed around the world. And it happened 1 year after he left office. The communists had become so weak that they lost their will to defend the wall. Thousands of Berliners took hammers and wrenches, drills and axes, and tore it down. At last the Germans who lived under communists in East Berlin could cross to West Berlin at night with the fire consuming. The world walks with amazement as the evil empire began to crumble. The suffering of millions was at last coming to an end. Ronald Reagan will always be remembered for the great things he did, as well as for his reasons for doing it. He believed in American values, and he believed that Americans would fight to uphold them so long that is as they were proud to be Americans. Ronald Reagan believed in God, family, and patriotism. He believed in personal liberty, democracy, and the free market. And he believed America would remain strong as long as the government avoided the mistakes of communism. It should never try to do for people what they ought to do for themselves, nor should it want the lives for them. We should all be free to choose our own path in life. Reagan triumphed over the evil empire, showed the world the value of freedom. Communism should force people to work. Could force people to work because they were afraid of the government. But America gave people hope. This has always made Americans do more and do better. Under Reagan leadership, the world saw that when it all said and done, hope is stronger than fear. This was the meaning of American victory in the Cold War. It is with hope that we walk to the food store, and as Ronald Reagan liked to remind us, it was morning in America. Ronald Reagan acted in more than 60 movies. He was Rector's Benz. At age 13, he tried to try on his mud glasses and was stunned. He never imagined people could see so clearly. This is how he discovered he needed glasses. The sport. He excelled at swimming. It did not depend on good eyesight. He was the captain of his swim team in college and worked as a lifeguard. His nickname was the Gripper after playing the role of a college football player named George the Gripper in the movie. At 69 years old, he was the oldest person to assume the president. The record was broken by Donald Trump 70 and then again by Joe Biden at 78. While in office, President Reagan made time every day to personally answer letters from his citizens and children.